Good morning, everybody. So today is Friday, 6th of October, 10:30, and we're here for the licensing subcommittee around number 6, the bistro. So the first item on the agenda is an election of chair. Um, so
So if we could have a nomination for election of chair, please. Claire, yes, is that seconded? Yes.
Thank you. So the next item is, do members have any interests they wish to declare? No? Okay, brilliant. So item number 3, so welcome all to the meeting. I am Councillor Tevlin, Chair of Licensing Subcommittee Hearing. Before we start, I'd like to remind you of a few housekeeping arrangements. If you wish to speak, please can you indicate that you wish to do so, to the Chair. To enable your microphone, please press the middle button, which will turn green, and the microphone will light up red at the top. Please also remember to press the middle button when you have finished speaking. It is particularly important that all members use their microphones so that the audio can be picked up on the live stream. In the event of a fire alarm sounding during the meeting, please stand up and follow the meeting administrator to the fire evacuation point outside the building. I would also like to remind you that this meeting is being filmed on the Council's YouTube channel for live and subsequent broadcast. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there is confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed to have consented to being filmed. By entering the meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. Thank you. In the room with me here at Pathfinder House are the following members of the subcommittee: Councillor Simon Bywater, Councillor Sally Howe, and myself as Councillor Claire Tevlin. I now will ask the officers of the licensing team to introduce themselves.
Hi, yes, William Delarefice, Licensing Officer.
Good morning, everybody. Michelle Bishop, Licensing Manager.
Brilliant. I'd also like to point out today we also have Tony Johnson, the Council's legal advisor, and Becky Buddle from Democratic Services. I understand that the applicant is not attending today. Would those representing the applicant please now introduce themselves? Please state your name and in what capacity you are here to represent the applicant.
Yes, good morning. My name is Frank Fender. I'm the agent representing the applicant this morning. To my left is Rosemary Rowley. She's the events lead for the premises. And to her left is Mr. Turgai Aslan. He's the designated premises supervisor for the premises.
Thank you. I will now ask the interested parties to introduce themselves. Please state your name and who you are representing. Please also indicate if you intend to address the subcommittee this morning.
Yeah, it's Mike Fletcher. I'm chair of the trustees at St Neots Museum. I would like to just to raise a couple of things at the meeting.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth St Hill Davis. I was until recently the curator of St Neots Museum, but I'm now coming as an independent local resident, and I would like to speak to the meeting.
Many thanks. Is there anyone else who I haven't covered who's here today who'd like to speak? No? Okay. So we'll crack on with item 4, licensing subcommittee procedure. You would have received within the hearing papers that we circulated to you a copy of the licensing subcommittee procedure. The hearing will commence under this procedure. Any representations that have been made should be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Do any parties present have any questions of clarification at this stage? This should relate to the procedure only.
Yeah, sorry, it's Mike Fletcher. Just one question. Are we allowed to challenge some of the supporting material from specifically the response from Cambridgeshire Capital Constabulary? Is that allowed? You have a question. Yeah. Sorry. You have
Yeah, keep processing, keep taking the pills. If you have an observation, there are statutory representors who are automatically asked to make any representation they may have. If you then have some form of query, depending on which of the representors the query is against, we will take that at the time. But if it is something that only they can answer, then naturally it wouldn't be something that the committee can give you a direct answer to, because it's not their representation. All right.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll get on with item number 5, the hearing. I will now like to invite the licensing officer to present the application. Thank you.
Huntingdonshire District Council, as a licensing authority, have received an application for a new premise license from Mr. Murat Gaygusuz on behalf of Number 6 Bistro and Cocktail Bar for the premises Number 6 Bistro and Cocktail Bar, 6 New Street, St Neots, PE 191AE. The application was received on the 18th of August 2023. As required under the Licensing Act 2003, notice of the application was advertised by blue notices displayed at or near the premises from the 19th of August 2023. The 28-day consultation period ended on the 14th of September 2023. A copy of the application is attached as Appendix A, and a copy of the site plans are attached as Appendix B. A copy of the existing license is attached as Appendix C. The premise license variation application is applying for the following activities: supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises, and the variation applied for is Friday to Saturday, 0800 hours to 0300 hours, and currently permitted are Monday to Thursday, 0800 to midnight, Friday and Saturday, 0800 to 0100 hours, and Sunday, 0800 to 2300 hours. It's also applying for the provision of live music. The variation applied for is Monday to Thursday, 1200 hours to midnight, and Friday and Saturday, 1200 hours to 0300 hours. Currently permitted under the license are Monday to Sunday, 1200 hours to 2300 hours. The provision of recorded music, the variation applied for is Friday and Saturday, 0900 hours to 0300 hours, and currently permitted under the license is Monday to Thursday, 0900 hours to midnight, Friday and Saturday, 0900 hours to 0100 hours, and Sunday, 0900 hours to 2300 hours. It's also applying for the provision of late night refreshment. The variation applied for is Friday and Saturday, 2300 hours to 0300 hours, and currently permitted under the license are Monday to Thursday, 2300 hours to midnight, Friday and Saturday, 2300 hours to 0100 hours, and Sunday, 2300 hours to midnight. The hours the premises are open to the public, the variation applied for is Monday to Thursday as currently permitted, which is 0800 hours to midnight, and Friday and Saturday 0800 to 0300 hours. Currently permitted are 0800 hours to 0100 hours, and Sunday as currently permitted 0800 hours to 2300 hours. They have also applied for seasonal variations, being all of the above named activities to be permitted until 0300 hours on New Year's Day, and currently permitted under the license is the premise may be open and alcohol be supplied on New Year's Eve until 0200 hours. Section M of the application form addresses the 4 licensing objectives. Any proposals made in this section are normally translated directly into enforceable conditions that will be attached to the premise license. Paragraphs 8.41 to 8.49 and Section 10 of the Home Office guidance issued under Section 182 refer to the operating schedule and license conditions. Section 3 is the representations. As part of the consultation, the responsible authorities, as determined under the Licensing Act 2003, were consulted on the application. Their responses can be seen in summary at Appendix D. As per Appendix D, there were conditions agreed with the police and applicant during the consultation period. During the period of representation, a total of 5 valid representations have been received from other persons. Full details of these representations have been attached as Appendix E. During the period for representation, a total of 16 emails commenting on the application were received. These can be found as Appendix F. A person who has submitted a relevant representation is entitled to address the licensing subcommittee at the hearing and ask questions of any other party appearing at the hearing. Not all matters raised within the representation may be relevant matters for consideration under the Licensing Act 2003. As discussed earlier, the licensing authority must carry out its functions under the Act with a view to promoting the licensing objectives. Each objective has equal importance, and the objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The subcommittee must also have regard to its statement of licensing policy and any statutory guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, as well as the Human Rights Act 1988. The Council must also fulfill its obligations under Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 to do all that is reasonably can to prevent crime and disorder in its district. So the determination in making a decision, this application must be determined on its individual merits, having regard to the representations and supporting documents included as part of the report, along with additional information considered relevant at the hearing. As part of the decision process, the subcommittee is required to give its reasons for any decision arrived at. Where the licensing authority considers that action under its statutory powers is appropriate, it may take any of the following steps. It may grant the application as applied for. It may refuse the application. It may add additional conditions to the premise license. It may exclude any licensable activities applied for. And it may also amend dates and times of licensable activities applied for. Any decision made by the subcommittee must be reasonable and proportionate and promote the licensing objectives. And that's finished. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions for the licensing officer? So we currently don't have any questions, but thank you for that. Does the applicant's representatives have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do any of the other interested parties have any questions? Questions only.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask the applicant's representatives to address the subcommittee for not more than 20 minutes and to call any witnesses if relevant.
Thank you. The premises, as the name suggests, are a bistro and a cocktail bar located in the centre of St Neots, close to the High Street. The premises comprises of a ground floor and a first floor. Also alongside the premises on the outside is an alleyway. That alleyway is on the right-hand side of the premises as you stand in the street looking towards the premises. The premises licence holder is Mr. Murat Gayguzuz. He can't be with us today, so he's represented by the DPS, Turgay Aslan, and also by Rosemary Rowley, the events lead for the premises. As you've heard, the premises currently operates under a premises licence. That licence was issued in May 2021, and the premises have operated in accordance with that licence since that date. The existing licensable activities and the times for those activities are contained within your report. I don't propose to go through them. They've been quite well verbed by your officer. The amended hours applied for are also described on pages 11 and 12. In essence, the premises licence holder is seeking to extend the terminal hour for licensable activities on a Friday and a Saturday until 0300 hours. That is the sale of alcohol, the provision of regulated entertainment in the form of live and recorded music, and the provision of late night refreshment. The opening hours for the premises would also change if these hours are granted. There is also the requested change to the non-standard timing in respect of New Year's Eve, a request to be allowed to trade until 0300 hours instead of the currently permitted 0200 hours. I should also point out that all existing conditions on the existing premises licence will remain in force. There's no application to remove any of those. They will all be complied with should you be minded to grant this application this morning. The submission of the variation application resulted in discussions with the police about the requested changes. And on pages 40 and 41 of your report is a summary of what has been agreed with the police. In particular, the terminal hour for licensable activities it's been agreed to amend that. On a Friday and a Saturday night, the terminal hour for music entertainment has been agreed with the police to end at 0200 hours instead of the applied for 0300 hours. And it's been agreed with the police that the terminal hour for the sale of alcohol will be 0230 hours, not the 0300 hours applied for. The police in their discussions proposed additional conditions which they would like to see the premises operate to, conditions which have been readily agreed by the applicant. These will also be added to the premises licence in addition to the existing conditions should this application be granted. There are, of course, representations, 5 representations from other persons. I would initially draw your attention to the fact that there are no representations from any of the other responsible authorities. The responsible authorities, as you know, are the statutory consultees on all licensing applications. There are no representations from any of those professional bodies. No representation from the police. Yes, discussions with the police, mediation with the police, agreed amended times, agreed additional conditions with the police. As well as the 5 representations that are before you this morning, there are many comments of support for the application. These comments are contained on pages 55 to 60 of your report. So if I can address the representations that have been made, 2 of those representations are associated with the museum immediately next door to these premises. One representation from the proprietor of the shoe repair shop, which is located at the rear of the alleyway that I spoke about. There's one representation from the coffee shop. The coffee shop shares the alleyway. And there's one representation from the Conservative Club, which is further along the road, along New Street. There are 2 other public houses in very close proximity to number 6 Bistro and Cocktail Bar. That is the Pig and Falcon and the Weeping Ash. The representations that have been made are very quick to point out that those 2 premises are actually okay. But all of the problems that they experience, they allege, are as a result of number 6 being open and operating. The representations talk about littering. They talk about vomit. They talk about a fight. They talk about parking issues. And I will make the following observations in respect of those comments. Collectively, the representations seem to complain about customers of number 6 Bistro using the alleyway at the side of the premises, blocking fire escape routes, and littering the alleyway and museum forecourt. That's in a nutshell the summary of the representations that have been made. The museum, according to their website, opens Tuesday to Saturday between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Notwithstanding that they do have occasional evening events, which I'm led to believe usually finish in the area of 9 o'clock in the evening. The shoe repair shop at the end of the alley closes at 5 o'clock each day. The coffee shop closes by 6 o'clock in the evening on any given day. The alleyway is a shared space. No business has exclusive use of the alleyway, it is shared by those businesses. So what is mystifying is how those making representations can talk about how customers of Number 6 Bistro and Cocktail Bar affect their businesses. Their businesses are closed when the customers from Number 6 are using this alleyway. Comments in the representations regarding illegal parking and obstructing the highway are not licensing matters and therefore not a consideration for you today. You will be aware that drivers of motor vehicles themselves have a duty to ensure that they comply with traffic regulation. Drivers have to take personal responsibility. They have to park legally. They have to park responsibly. And any blame for breaking these traffic rules cannot be levelled at any licence holder. Mr. Bennett, in his representation, he's the proprietor of the shoe shop, complains that the alleyway is blocked with bins on a Friday and a Saturday night. This is actually done to make sure that customers from Number 6 do not venture further along the alleyway to the area outside his shop. And in any event, the shop is well past its closing time when this occurs. Comments that customers from Number 6 use the forecourt in front of the museum are also refuted. This area is completely open. There is nothing to stop any person who is walking past the museum from walking on that footpath. There's no barriers, there's no fencing, there's no gates. Therefore, any littering, etc., could be anyone walking past and not necessarily, as alleged, customers from Number 6 Bistro. And as the museum is closed when these issues are alleged to be happening, we don't know how the representations can blame customers from Number 6. What I can say is that Number 6 Bistro use security staff on a Friday and a Saturday evening, and those security staff actually discourage customers from Number 6 from standing on the museum side of the premises, and they ask and insist that customers use the alleyway instead. I will say that the licence holder has ordered new barriers, which he intends to use on a Friday and a Saturday evening, rather than using bins to barricade the end of the alleyway. The new barriers will be placed outside in the evening when the premises are open in the late evenings, and then they will be removed and put back inside Number 6 at the end of the day's trading. The premises licence holder does understand that there could be a degree of littering in the alleyway at the end of the evening, and he will therefore instruct staff to clear this area of litter, etc., at the end of each night. And finally, there is a reference to how the longer hours applied for in the representations would be detrimental to local residents in the area. However, can I point out, there are no representations from any of the residents in this area. The representations are made by businesses, and with the exception of the Conservative Club, those businesses are closed well before any issues that they have raised may be problematical. In summary, Chair, what you're now being asked for is to grant permission for the sale of alcohol until 0230 hours on a Friday and a Saturday, not the 0300 that was applied for. You're being asked to grant permission for music entertainment until 0200 hours on a Friday and a Saturday, not the 0300 initially applied for. And those times were amended, as I've said, as a result of agreed amendments with the police. The police also proposed additional conditions which the police believe will promote the licensing objectives. If they did not believe those conditions would promote the licensing objectives, I have no doubt that they would be sitting in this room today making their own representation. Whilst the 5 representations talk about alleged issues of antisocial behaviour, I would draw your attention to paragraphs 2.1 and 9.12 of the statutory guidance which is issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act. Both of those paragraphs state that licensing authorities should look to the police as the recognised experts on matters of crime and disorder. That consultation with the police has been carried out to the police's satisfaction. Certain aspects of what the objectors have said in their representations have been taken on board by the premises licence holder. They will cease using bins as a barricade. They will use the new barriers that are on order, and staff will be instructed to clean the alleyway at the end of each day's training. Security staff at the premises will also ensure that customers do not venture onto the forecourt of the museum, but to remain on the alleyway side of the premises. We therefore ask you to grant the application in accordance with the agreed amendments with the police, and I will give way to questions now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. Very helpful. Just a couple of questions in respect of my own understanding and clarity in respect of this location. I'm trying to picture the scene at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or Friday night. Where do the clients, can you describe to me where the clients stand to go and have a cigarette, or, you know, when they leave the premises, and how that will impact on the area as a whole, really?
Yep. Okay. They go into the alleyway, and there's floodlights which have been installed, which are clearly seen visibly the clients who go out there. And there's security at the toilet area at the back who actually stand there and visualize whoever's coming or smoking. And they go through the back door, rather, so you can't come through the front entrance of the alleyway. You have to be in the premises to actually go and smoke.
So at all times, those people are supervised within the enclosure of the premises. Okay. Thank you. That clarifies that point. And then it's a shame the police aren't here, but there's been, on some of the representations that you've referred to, is, you know, public disorder and allegations of fighting. I just want to understand the CCTV that's in situ. Could you explain that to me, and how you would provide evidential factors to the police if there were further disturbances, or have you done that in the past in the way you dealt with that for the police?
There are allegations of assaults in the representations. What I can say is that there was one assault, but Rosemary was actually present and on duty at the time of that assault. I'll ask Rosemary to explain the circumstances, because it's not as portrayed in the representations.
Hello, everyone. The fight actually wasn't at number 6. It happened after hours. The customers were in number 6, and after they left, they got attacked outside the Pig and Falcon alleyway. They then came back to number 6, and we helped them. So we gave them water and we gave them tissue as a way for paramedics and the police to turn up. And the next day, they came back to number 6 to say thank you that we'd looked after them. But yeah, it didn't happen in number 6.
Thank you. Just looking at any more questions from the panel? No. Do any officers present from the licensing or council's legal representative have any questions for the applicant?
The issue in relation to the alleyway, is that access and egress to other properties along that alleyway, and is there a vehicular right to use that alleyway at all times?
The alleyway is never used by vehicles. It's not that wide. At the end of the alleyway, I understand there is a store which belongs to the museum. There's also the shoe repairer shop that I referred to. The coffee shop access to the alleyway is by virtue of the rear door of the coffee shop. The coffee shop is actually on the high street.
Yes.
For entry for their customers, but the rear door of the coffee shop, which is not a public access, that opens into that alleyway. I think that answers your question. No, it doesn't.
Is the alleyway private land, or is it, if so, under whose ownership? And does it have, or is there an existent right of way over it by vehicle?
Yeah, it's not known whether it's private land. It's certainly no vehicles ever use it. You can't get a vehicle down there. It's not wide enough. And certainly no vehicles in the evenings when activities are taking place. Sorry? A bollard at the entrance to the alleyway.
I'm trying to get to the point where I can advise the committee accordingly. What right do you have to place barriers at the end of the alleyway, excluding access to anyone else who might have a lawful use? I'll put it in those terms.
If you want to come with a vehicle, you can easily come with a vehicle, but the key guy puts a bollard at the end anyway, so he locks it so no one can come in. So if you want to come with a vehicle, you can't after 5 o'clock. But if you wanted to drive in that area, you can. We're not blocking right at the beginning. We're only blocking from our toilet area of our back door shared access. So if you come out the back door and from the toilets to the smoking area, you've only got a small amount of section for smoking. We're not blocking the whole alleyway. If you wanted to drive in, if someone takes a bollard down, they can drive in if they wanted to. There's the key guy, the shoe repair guy.
Just checking are there any further questions from? No. Okay. So does the applicant do any of those people who have made representations have any questions for the applicant? This is for questions only. There will be an opportunity to make statements shortly.
No questions, but I've got my objections.
No questions for me.
Thank you. I will now invite interested parties to address the subcommittee for no more than 20 minutes each. May I remind you that representations must be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. My name's Elizabeth St Hill Davis, and until the 16th of June this year, I was the curator of St Neots Museum. I'm now a trustee of the museum, and I live locally in Amesbury. The reasons for my objection are: since the number 6 bistro and cocktail bar opened, there has been a steady deterioration in the area around the premises which directly adjoin St Neots Museum. This has been of great concern to museum trustees, staff and volunteers who have had to struggle with litter, illegal parking, antisocial behaviour, vomiting, broken glass, public urination, drunken behaviour and rowdy behaviour at night, which compromises the security of our building. I have 4 specific objections to the application. 1, the harm and loss of amenity to local residents. New Street is a residential street with a wide mix of residents, some well into retirement. Granting a variation of the current premises licence will have a seriously detrimental effect on the amenity, health and well-being of the residents. 2, antisocial behaviour and public nuisance. Poor behaviour is a regular occurrence outside the premises, and if the application to vary the licence was successful, this would allow this behaviour to continue for much longer through the night at weekends. Illegal parking. An extension of the opening hours of number 6 would result in even more frequent deliveries of alcohol and food to the premises, and this would result in more daily illegal parking on New Street, on the double yellow lines on the road, on the public pavement, and on the forecourt of St Neots Museum, which is private property. This obstructs access for pedestrians, and as the bar is very close to the New Street High Street junction with traffic lights, the illegal parking causes a hazard as it's so close to the junction. Number 4, setting a precedent. This application would set a precedent of weekend opening. I put in my objections until 3, but now that seems to have been reduced to 2:30. And it would encourage other licensed premises in St Neots Town Centre to apply to vary their own premises licence and extend their weekend opening hours, which would be detrimental to St Neots Town Centre for all the reasons already mentioned. And anybody who's been in St Neots Town Centre at 2 o'clock in the morning will know only too well what I'm talking about. The chairman of the museum trustees has made substantial efforts to engage with the bistro and cocktail bar to ask them to prevent problems occurring. But so far, this has not led to any noticeable change in the situation. I was under the impression that I only had 3 minutes to speak, so that's the end of my submission.
Thank you very much. Now to the next.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Just want to sort of highlight that our objection to the licensing application was a unanimous decision by all the representatives of the Museum Board of Trustees, of which there are 10. The museum is not a business, it's a registered charity, by the way. I mean, the reason for our collective objections, are already outlined in our correspondence, and I'm assuming I don't need to repeat that correspondence, that the committee have read through that. But from a trustee's perspective, our aim is to support our volunteers and staff as best we can, and to see the amount of litter and the requirement of our people to clear the forecourt after a weekend. I think it was a requirement of me to come in here and object to what I would see would be a worsening situation by extending the hours of opening. Much has been presented about other licensed premises in the area. And I just want to sort of highlight that the main thing that caused my attention, other than the state of our forecourt when we do have to clean it up, is around car parking. We've had numerous issues with cars being parked on our forecourt, and this isn't an issue with the other premises. We know that these cars are being parked there by representatives of suppliers or staff of the restaurant. And despite assurances that's still continuing, I went along there last weekend and the weekend before, and there are still cars being parked along that on our forecourt without any request to do so. And we have had assurances it would stop, but it hasn't. 2 weekends ago, I personally drove past just to see what the situation was like. And as I say, there was 2 cars parked on our forecourt, one of which I believe is the DJ being used by number 6. And unfortunately, I actually saw public urination occurring as I drove past, which wasn't a pleasant sight. And I accept that there are door staff, there are security staff at present, but they appear to be responsible for managing the door, and there is no attempt to protect our premises from unsociable behaviour, which is disappointing. The only other point, and I think this has already been picked up, is around one of the requirements was a designated smoking area. Obviously, I doubt if you aware of the premises, but the footpath in front of the building is probably about this and a half again. So they would not be able to put a designated smoking area at the front of the building. Much has been made about the alleyway. From my experience, it's dark, and I've seen evidence of it being used for other things like urination as well. That there doesn't appear to be door staff looking at what's going on in those alleyway either. So, as I say, as chair of the trustees of the museum, I felt it was responsible for me to come on here and object. It's a collective decision, the objection, and we await your decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael Fletcher and Ms. Liz Davies. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions? I just have one question. I think it was outlined, but I just want to go over again. How far is the proximity between the museum and number 6? What's the distance?
The buildings are we're next door. They're actually touching. There's no the alleyways. We've got a storeroom. Sorry, our building is virtually an L shape, and number 6 is our neighbour, and we have a separate storage area where a lot of our artifacts are held at the back of the alleyway, which is on the. If you were facing the bistro on the right-hand side, the museum is on the left-hand side of the bistro.
Sorry, Chair. We've brought up on Google Maps. Obviously, if the committee wanted to see the image, you've got it. Okay, that's right.
And this is my question. Police have confirmed that they don't see they don't see it as a significant problem. Yeah.
Sorry, am I able to answer some? Yeah, I mean, there's a number of recommendations, one of which is a designated smoking area, which the applicant has, all of the requests the applicant has said that they will follow. And to be honest, I'm confused about where that designated smoking area would be, but that's something that I'm not clear. Obviously, when I wrote my representation, I was not able to see the responses from the various bodies, but I question where that designated smoking area could actually be provided.
Thank you. Do any officers present, licensing or the council's legal representative, have any questions or comments?
Yes, Chair. Just one question for the applicant, if that's possible. Just with the smoking area, can you confirm that it is just barriers? There'll be no tables or chairs placed in that area?
Yes, that's correct. And the smoking area will actually be in the alleyway close to the rear door of number 6 Bistro. There's an area there, so it can't even be seen from the road.
Just checking. Any more questions? No, okay, that's fine. Does the applicant or the representatives have any questions?
Yes, please, if I may, Chair. So it's Miss Cynthia Davis. That's right. You make a big play of all the vehicles being parked along New Street causing obstruction, etc., how many of those vehicles belong to customers of number 6?
Well, none of them belong to customers. They all belong to, well, some of them may do, but they mainly belong to suppliers who come during the day. So during the day, there's quite a problem with suppliers coming to the shop, which is a difficult problem for various premises along New Street, but it's a particular problem for number 6 because they don't have any parking, and the parking to be close to number 6 is very close to the traffic lights. That they also tend to block the pavement, the public pavement. Sometimes they come onto the museum's forecourt, but there's also a lot of parking separately at night when there's nobody, when the museum is closed, which is on our forecourt, which is actually private property that belongs to St Neots Towns Council. And then if we want to gather on the forecourt for an evening walk or an evening event, we discover that somebody's parked there. But we are now taking measures to try and prevent that.
How much of these alleged antisocial behaviour do you actually witness?
Well, the museum has until recently run paranormal activity events on its premises, and they run and frit from 7 in the evening until 2 a.m. And so that means that I'm leaving the museum at 2 a.m. when the event ends, which gives me an opportunity to see what is going on.
And can you categorically state that the problems that you've presented to the subcommittee are all from customers and only customers from number 6?
No, I can't. That's also coming from the other public houses on New Street and from customers of other public houses in St Neots Town Centre. But what I've said in my submission is that since number 6 opened, there's been a substantial increase in antisocial behaviour.
And so you make an assumption that since the increase coincides with number 6 opening, you make an assumption that it must be from number 6.
I don't believe it's an assumption, but you may say so.
Can't see the light from here. I'm sorry. Mr. Fletcher, you talk about litter. Could you describe the litter, please?
Predominantly, we're talking about cigarette butts, being made predominantly cigarette butts on the thing, papers as well, broken glass, but it's a collection of rubbish that obviously that's occurred from people out in the evening.
And again, can you be sure, like, given that these premises have a smoking area in that alleyway and they actually get security staff to use that alleyway for smoking, can you be sure that the cigarette butts on your forecourt are from customers of number 6?
I cannot confirm that all of the cigarette butts are on the forecourt, obviously, but what I can confirm that I have observed people coming out of number 6 and going to our forecourt and smoking, and I've seen that in person. And I have other people with me that have seen that in person. So, yeah, you're quite right. I can't confirm all cigarette butts are from the bistro, but I can confirm that people are coming out and using our forecourt as a smoking area, as well as the alleyway.
And finally, I believe that you have now put a series of planters on your boundary, which actually prevents any vehicles from being able to be parked there. Is that correct?
We have put them as a temporary measure. Those planters should be along the building wall of the museum, but because despite requests for people to stop parking, on our forecourt. We have had to take this measure. And to take your point about admission hours from the museum, I welcome you accessing our website and looking at what the museum offers. The museum is open to the public within those hours registered on our website. However, we are a charity and we are required, therefore, to keep the premises going, and that requires us to have evening events and things like our escape room, which provide us income to keep the museum going, our evening events, and that we have had instances where we have had to go to the bistro number 6 to ask for vehicles to be moved because it's preventing the successful carrying out of those events in our museum in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the planters are a sensible solution to a problem. It's not, they would certainly stop any issues of illegal parking on your forecourt. Thank you. I've no further questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just last point, do any of the interested parties have any further questions? Again, just questions only.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just respond because it's we had this problem. We have a problem with parking on our forecourt. I have raised it a number of occasions, and despite assurances, the last 2 weekends that I've travelled to along that road, the parking is still there and occurring. Yes, we've put planters in as a temporary measure. It's not something I would want to have done. It's a temporary solution. Those planters should be along the museum walls. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're starting our escape room season this weekend, and we cannot afford to have any disruptions to that operation, which helps support the museum's running. Thank you.
From Ms. Davis.
Can I just respond to the point about, there are other premises next to the museum? I just want to say that I fully take on board the point that some of this disruption, the littering, etc., could be coming from the other premises. But the point is that the museum's been there for 25 years. I was the curator for 11 years. During that time, there was very few problems from the other premises, the Weeping Ash and the Pig and Falcon, but the problems have dramatically increased since number 6 has opened as a bar and bistro. Thank you.
Thank you. So no more questions, just to clarify. No, okay. I'd like to move on to the written representations from those who have indicated that they are unable to attend today. These are set out in your agenda pack. Does anyone have any comments on the written representations received? Members of the subcommittee? No?
Yeah, Chairman, I'm very new to this committee, and I just want to put it on public record in relation to the submissions in relation to the letters of support emails. I note that all the dates on the submissions are dated the 14th of September 2023. Were they all received on the same day? Sorry.
To the officer.
Yes, so the date that's on all of those submissions is the date that we received them.
Is that a usual practice or is that unusual?
So it does vary. Obviously, the day that we received them was the last day for any submissions in support or against the application. So it's not uncommon for there to be a flurry of activity in either direction on the final day, especially in support or objection. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments from officers present? No. Any comments from the applicant's representative?
Is this part of the summing up Chair.
It's part of the comments on written representations.
Oh. I think any comments that I had were made during my presentation, so there's no comments.
Thank you. And the other interested parties, any comments on the written representation?
No further comments, no.
Members of the subcommittee, have we all noted the written representations? Yeah. May I now invite the applicant's representatives to sum up the application for a period of no longer than 5 minutes. Please do not introduce any new evidence to the proceeding.
Thank you, Chair. No, I will keep it straightforward. There's always a tendency to repeat everything that's gone on before, but I will resist that. But I will draw your attention to the fact that the police are your main source of advice. According to the statutory guidance, the main source of advice in respect of matters relating to crime and disorder. The police, as you know, have been in consultation with the premises licence holder. They have agreed amended times, reduced times to those applied for, and also to a series of additional conditions. Of course, that any breach of condition carries very serious consequences. A breach of a condition can lead to a prison term of up to 6 months, and it can lead to an unlimited fine. That tends to focus the mind. The applicant feels confident that he can work to the extended hours without causing issues with the introduction of those conditions. And of course, it's also within your gift to apply any other further conditions that you deem. The bins did act as quite a useful barrier to prevent customers from straying up to the shop of Mr. Bennett's, but proper barriers will also afford the same results. Barriers will be put out in the evening and then returned to the premises. You've heard from the interested persons that one of the reasons for the objection is a loss of amenity. I would point out that loss of amenity is not a matter relevant to the licensing objectives, and nor is the matter of setting a precedent. A precedent is not relevant to the licensing objectives either. It's always within the gift of any licensed premises to make an application for anything should they so wish. There is no such thing as a precedent. So, bearing all of that in mind, we would ask you to grant the licence in accordance with the agreed and the amended conditions and times with the police. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Before we move on to item 6, the exclusion of press and public, the subcommittee will now retire to deliberate. The council's legal advisor will stay to provide legal advice and to record the subcommittee's decision. We are unclear how long the deliberations will take. Our decision will be sent out to you in writing as soon as possible. If you do want to wait around, you are welcome to do so. The choice is yours. All parties do have a right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the decision. Is there anything else you wish to add? Tony, is there anything else? No. That leaves me to thank you all for your attendance today. We will now move to item 6, the exclusion of press and public. Are you members happy to exclude the press and public? Yes, yeah. Agreed. So thank you.
Turn that back on because we've actually stopped streaming. So the members are just going to go to a different meeting room to